Restaurants can't find workers because they've already found better jobs. Nearly 2 million hospitality and leisure jobs remain unfilled in what economists call a deep, profound shift in the labor market. Let's dive into the details, shall we? After losing her longtime restaurant job at the beginning of the pandemic, Amelia McGrath scrambled to find a backup plan. She traded in her apartment in Boston for her childhood bedroom in Bowdoin, Maine, moving in with parents to briefly work at a private school. Eventually, the 28-year-old found a job working on exhibits at a children's museum a couple hours away. Couple hours. She's driving a couple hours every day. That's insanity. Take what you can get, I guess. That short-term plan has become a permanent one. She's driving 2 hours every day there and back. It's insanity. I hope she has some podcasts or something to keep her company. Let's continue. McGrath makes less than she did in restaurants, but has far better benefits, including paid time off, health insurance, and a predictable schedule. For now, at least, she's done with restaurants. Yeah, and then there's the negative. It's 2 hours away. It feels like a healthy change, he said. Nearly 3 years since the coronavirus pandemic upended the labor market, restaurants, bars, hotels, and casinos remain short-staffed with nearly 2 million unfilled openings. The leisure and hospitality industry, which before the pandemic accounted for much of the country's job growth, it's still short roughly 500,000 employees from 2020 levels, even as other sectors have recovered. But these workers didn't disappear. A lot of them, like McGrath, who were laid off early in the pandemic, moved to behind the scenes office work where they are more likely to have increased flexibility, stability, and often better pay. As you can see on this graph, this is crazy. The biggest dip was in 2020. They didn't have any jobs in March. And now it's just skyrocketed. 2021, the peak was November 2021. Then it dropped a bit. Now it's back up almost to that peak. 1.9 million now. In the very peak, not 1.99. And we're at 1.93. Crazy. Employment and professional and business services, a catch-all category that includes office jobs in accounting, engineering, law, and other white-collar firms, has soared by 1.4 million during the pandemic, and tens of thousands of additional people are working in finance, construction, and transportation and warehousing. There's this reshuffling going on that is explaining why lots of industries can't find workers, said Betsy Stevenson, an economics professor at the University of Michigan and former Labor Department chief economist. Their workers have left to go somewhere else. These migrations have been possible in part because so many workers have left the labor force entirely. An estimated 2.5 million people have died, retired, or otherwise dropped out since 2020. Americans older than 55 in particular stopped working at heightened rates during the pandemic because of COVID-related health risks. Plus, rapid run-ups in home values and stock prices made it financially viable for scores of older Americans to retire. Yeah, you sell your house for $1 million when you bought it for $50,000 back in the 70s. Yeah, probably like, I can retire. I'll just go I'll go lease. I'll go lease for the next 30 years. Why not? Those extra vacancies in the job market, researchers have found created room for people in the service industry to move into new lines of work. As a result, workers are missing from certain service jobs, often the ones most visible to the public. Selling drinks, steaming lattes, waiting tables, cleaning hotel rooms, or caring for babies. There's been a shift away from the sectors where we have the most person to person contact, said Nick Bunker, economist research director at the jobs site Indeed. It feels like no one's working, even though we can tell from government statistics that they are. It isn't clear exactly how many workers made the switch from service work to other industries. The Bureau of Labor Statistics tracks employment by sector, but offers little visibility into workers' movements or motivations. But labor economists say there has been a discernible shift away from service sector work, which has altered the U.S. job market and possibly reshaped it for the long term. In interviews, many workers said they made the switch thinking it would be temporary, but found the new stability tough to give up. Ashton Rodriguez, who lived in Cleveland, switched careers in March 2020 after nearly 15 years working in restaurants and bars. She had been considering starting her own jewelry business for years, but said the jolt of the pandemic sped things up. Like a lot of people, I had time to sit with myself and figure out what I really wanted, the 34-year-old said. It was a forced decision in a way, but not an unhappy one. She makes twice the money she made as a bartender at Longhorn Steakhouse and says she likes having control over her own hours. Instead of working well into the morning, she's often in bed by 8:30 p.m. Working for herself is super scary, she said, but I would never go back. Yeah, pros and cons to being an entrepreneur for sure. But yeah, that's exciting. She went and did that, and I could see why she wouldn't want to go back. The movement of workers away from hospitality jobs is playing a role in the economy's broader inflationary problems. Pressure to attract workers has driven up wages in the industry by 23% in the past 3 years, more than any other sector, complicating the Federal Reserve's task of containing inflation. Fed's Chair Jerome H. Powell this week flagged service sector inflation as a result of higher wages, which are compounded by costlier food and gas, as a particular concern for the central bank. Clearly, labor is important for restaurants, but so are food prices, Powell said in a Wednesday news conference following the Fed's latest rate increase. The latest interest rate increase. There are lots of things in the mix that will drive inflation. I would say overall, though, you're not going to have a sustainable return to 2% inflation in the service sector without a better balance in the labor market. The job sector shift has been most pronounced in the United States, where 20 million Americans suddenly lost their jobs in early 2020. Unlike many European countries, which helped workers stay on the job by subsidizing their wages, the United States took a different approach, offering additional unemployment benefits once people were out of work. Employers cut 14% of the U.S. workforce in the first month of the pandemic, with many of those losses concentrated in restaurants, hotels, childcare centers, and other service employers. Yeah, now it's interesting. Now you can't get them back. What a shock! You just fire all these people, and then they're like, "Well, I need a new means to make a living." And what do you know? They found a new means to make a living, and now they don't want to come back. William Spriggs, a labor economist who was originally critical of the mass layoffs in the United States, now says the shakeup may have ultimately encouraged service workers to look beyond low-wage jobs. I mean, that's true. It kind of pushed people into stuff for them personally. It's great, but for the economy, yeah, that's like what do we automate now? I wonder what the solution to this is. But let's continue. This has been a good evolution. It has raised wages and changed the structure of the labor market in a deep, profound way, says Spriggs, chief economist for the AFL-CIO. Workers who were trapped in low-wage jobs were able to escape by switching to higher-paying industries. Indeed, federal data shows that Any worker who switched jobs generally gets higher pay increases, an annual increase of about 7.7% as of December, compared to 5.5% for employees who stay put. I'm curious if that's the case for these jobs, though. Yeah, overall, if you switch jobs, you're going to get a higher rate. But during the pandemic, it was completely different, right? It's like the one woman they talked to about in the beginning, she went from a restaurant to a museum 2 hours away, and like they said, she didn't get paid more. She got benefits, but she didn't get paid, and it's 2 hours away. Interesting. At the same time, a burst of retirements during the pandemic helped set the stage for low-wage workers to move into professional occupations that often came with better pay, more flexibility, and lower exposure to health risks, according to a recent paper published by a National Bureau of Economics Research. When older workers who were in the relatively high paying jobs at the top of the ladder retired, everyone else was able to climb up a step from a worse job to a better one, said David Wixer. David Wixer, an economist professor of Storybrooke University and one of the paper's co authors. The jobs that remained empty, the researchers found, were the less desirable ones: low skilled, low wage, customer facing jobs. I don't know. I wouldn't say hospitality necessarily, though, are low skilled and low wage. Some of them are, but you could get promoted pretty quick up to better positions. Business is booming at the Westgate Las Vegas Resort and Casino. Barry Manilow is back on stage, and the hotel where Elvis Presley famously performed hundreds of shows is fully booked for weeks at a time. But workers are tough to come by. The property is operating with just 1,400 full-time employees, down from more than 2,000 before the pandemic. Las Vegas is back, but the workers are not, said Gordon Prouty, the hotel's vice president of public relations. Many people moved on. We had a very tenured staff here. Some people decided to retire rather than come back. Others moved, and others were slow to come back because they had health concerns or wanted to work remotely. It's a very front-facing industry. Yeah, you can't go in and be like, hey, customer, and you're like, what are you going to be, a robot? That's not good. No, you want people there. The positions that have been hardest to fill, he said, are the workers who interact most frequently with guests, such as casino dealers, security guards, wait staff, and bartenders, and housekeepers. The resort has raised pay and is hosting additional job fairs. Yeah, and it's crazy because bartenders and waiters, especially bartenders in Vegas, they must make bank. Here in Austin, bartenders make a lot of money, and so do waiters. A lot of money. I know a waiter who on New Year's she made over $1,000 in one night here in Austin. So, yeah, you can make a lot of money. Staffing has been a consistent challenge after COVID, Prouty said. We've had to get creative. Economists say the dynamics could soon change as a cooling economy prompts tech giants, insurance firms, banks, and real estate companies to lay off more office workers. It's possible some of these employees, particularly those in administration and secretarial jobs, could go back to service jobs. In January, the hospitality and leisure industry added 128,000 new jobs, the most in any sector. For now, demand continues to outpace supply. Fresh data this week showed that hospitality and leisure openings account for nearly 2 million of the country's 11 million job openings. In Cambridge, Mass., Atwood's Tavern has struggled to refill its ranks after laying off its entire workforce early in the pandemic. Many longtimers, including McGrath, who works at the Children's Museum, left for new pursuits. One employee now works at the Science Lab. A few others took remote customer service positions. The people who used to work in restaurants have gotten new jobs, said General Manager Alex Sirigu. They've all moved on. The restaurant, which used to recruit exclusively by networking and word of mouth, has begun posting openings at every single online platform from local classifieds to national job boards, he said. Surigu has also taken steps to make the jobs more attractive, raising wages by as much as 20% and closing earlier at 11 p.m. instead of 1 a.m. on weeknights. Yeah, and that's why you can never get food anymore at night. It's terrible. No one wants to work at the places. The pool of workers has gotten much smaller, Surigu said, adding that almost all candidates are new to the industry. It's mostly younger people, entry-level applicants who are fresh graduates or high school students. We are having to start from scratch. Well, I mean, that kind of is unfortunate, but you know what you're doing, Surigu. So train them up, and in a year, the problem should be solved. Sounds like. Kind of being a little facetious, but I mean, it's cool they are getting new applicants. They'll learn. Okay, that's the end of the article, I guess. So yeah, this is I don't know. It's expected, but it's interesting to see real statistics and real stories about it. But yeah, I know that I live in Austin and Austin, Texas, and yeah, you can't get anything usually past 10 or 11 o'clock at night because everything's closed. The bars are open, but restaurants, yeah, not so much. But I think it'll come back. It's interesting, the retirees and stuff. And automation will play a part. It's really interesting. Everyone's like, we can't have automation. It's going to take jobs. But then at the same time, people don't want the jobs. 2 million job openings. That's insane. That is super insane. 2 million job openings. Wow. Maybe people will get more desperate. I mean, the layoffs in the tech industry right now are insane. So maybe it'll spark people to come back to work in these industries. They're not as good at jobs, but the economy was, inflated with no one wanting to work. Period. And COVID, people overpaid for jobs, overhired, and now the economy's contracting. So I don't know. It's interesting. So I think this will make people go back to these jobs, which is unfortunate for them, but obviously the jobs need to be filled. So, and the economy's kind of false anyway, to be honest. But hopefully most people can rebound. The economy will rebound eventually, and then you do get the fresh restaurant workers, or you automate, and people don't want these undesirable jobs, the less undesirable jobs, you automate them. People didn't want to shovel holes to build buildings, with pickaxes. So now there's tractors, there's machinery. So it makes sense. But what do you think? Do you think these jobs are going to keep staying unopened from automation, or do you think people will come back? I want to hear all your opinions in the comments below. Also, please give this video a like, subscribe to the channel for daily news updates, hit that notification bell, and share this video to help spread the news. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.